Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars The Clone Wars review. This one is going to be for Season 7, Episode 1. This one's called The Bad Batch. So, Season 7 is finally here. The first episode is aired, went up on Disney+, and yeah, it's out. So we are getting the episodes weekly, so we only have one episode to focus on right now. As we knew, we are going to start off with this 4-episode arc, The Bad Batch arc, and this is our, first episode called The Bad Batch. Before I even get into, I suppose, talking about this episode specifically, I think it's important to, I suppose, discuss how I think a lot of people are going to be viewing this episode and this arc as, I think, being a feature part of the final season. There's definitely, I think, going to be debate, especially once we get to the end of the season, about why did they choose to include this arc in here, for a number of reasons. One of which, I think probably the main reason, is that if you're a hardcore fan of the Clone Wars, you've probably seen these 4 episodes already. You've seen this episode before. These episodes, all 4 of them, have been out online for years. Yes, in incomplete form, in terms of like they were animatics or story reels, whatever way you want to call them. They're not complete and they look a bit weird, but they're fully acted. There's music in them, and there's enough animation in there to kind of get across exactly what's going on, in that there was, like, watching this episode in full now versus a few days ago when I watched the animatic again, it's very, close, especially on an arc like this where it's much more about the action than any character stuff. It was like, yeah, this is definitely the same thing. They switched up some of the dialogue a bit because they obviously re-recorded some stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty identical. So that, I hope, doesn't work against this that much. I do probably get the impression it is mainly the hardcore fans who have seen this already. But the fact that, like, ultimately there's not going to be a ton of excitement leading into, like, the last few episodes, because obviously the spoilers are out there for everything. Everyone knows what happens in this arc. So, that's something that I think goes against it to start off. That we're starting off with 4 episodes that we already know. That it's going to be 4 weeks before we get to actually new episodes that we don't know exactly what happens in. The other thing is that I think Ahsoka is obviously on everyone's mind starting this season. That's what everyone wants to see. The Ahsoka arc of the transition between her leaving the Jedi Order and coming back. That's an important arc. And then the finale arc, Siege of Mandalore, everyone wants to see that one. But we have to get through these 4 episodes before we even touch on Ahsoka at all. So that's another thing that is going to potentially work against this one. Just because it's not focusing on the characters that really people want to get behind. Now, the thing about this one is that, like, it's a fine arc, but I'd ultimately would say it's one of those arcs where, like some of the arcs from, like, the last couple of seasons of the Clone Wars, probably didn't need to have as many episodes as it did have. This is a 4-episode arc. This one probably could have been cut down to 2 or 3 if you really, really needed to. It feels just a little bit like there's too much content here for what the arc is actually about, and that come the end of this episode, the big tease, of course, is that Echo, who we thought was dead since the end of, like, I think Season 3, is actually still alive. Like, okay, so you're going to reintroduce Echo. That's fine. But, like, you get the idea of, like, okay, they're leaning on the emotions of the Domino Squad thing. The squad we've followed since the start of the show, with episodes like ARC Troopers, Rookies, their defense of Kamino, where, like, they really, show how impressive they are. You get episodes like the Citadel with, Echo apparently being killed. You get the Fives arc in Season 6. You get what they're going, and, like, the thumbnail I used for this video, the picture of, like, Rex looking at the part of Domino Squad that he got to see, basically Fives and Echo and, like, himself and so on. You get the emotion behind it and what it's going for here, but it's like, it's a relatively small character arc, and devoting 4 episodes to it just feels a little bit much in my mind. Like, I like the clones and can get behind them, and I can understand the want in this final season to have some more sort of clone trooper-centric, arc, but a third of the season feels a little much, given that this whole arc, I think, is ultimately relatively light on super amazing content, and that, like, okay, Echo is going to come back. That's cool. The Bad Batch themselves are interesting characters because they allow you to really play off the difference between regular clones and these kind of odd commando type characters. That's very, very kind of cool and unique, but it wears off relatively quickly because you realize that actually our regular clones are kind of more interesting than these oddball characters because they are more defined by like one or two specific traits, whereas the likes of Rex, Cody, and so on, they're more nuanced characters because their differences between the different clones are kind of more nuanced rather than like Hunter has like incredible sensing abilities, and Wrecker's big and strong. Crosshairs is like obviously super accurate and stuff like that. And Tech is just a tech wizard, and it's like, okay, that's cool and all, but like Rex is this very unique kind of commander character. He's like Anakin's captain, so he has elements of sort of Anakin's tactics in there. Plus, he himself is one of the most respected clones. You know, Cody is more like kind of the Obi-Wan style of things, but then he sort of surprises you in this episode with the fact that clearly he's been on missions before with the Bad Batch, and so that's a unique trait to add to Cody, that, you know, the Bad Batch respects him, but they take a little bit to respect the likes of Rex and everyone else. Like, okay, that's cool enough. That's an interesting point. But I think apart from them being cool, that's kind of really all there is to these characters in a way. That they are just there to be these very unique and impressive characters, in that, say, Gregor, a clone commando, like, in a way, kind of the regular clones, the ones most similar to the Bad Batch, he felt like a more interesting character because he had like an arc of like why he wasn't like in action anymore and how he's brought back into action and so on. That's really, really interesting. Here it's just like, okay, this is kind of like the Suicide Squad of like the clones. If you know Transformers, they're like the Wreckers basically type thing, and that's interesting and cool because like they have look at their cool unique armor and their cool tactics. Like Wrecker just, you know, throws one of the drop ships across to get Cody out. You know, he holds a whole door of the ship up to act as armor as they kind of rush the droids. And you know, you see how skilled they are with the fact that they're using knives in addition to their other weaponry and so on, and they're just like running through kind of blaster fire almost as if, you know, they're kind of Jedi level, just like that's how easy it is for them. And you'll see a lot of this as the arc kind of progresses, just moments like this. And this arc, to me, in terms of like how strong it is from episode 1 to episode 4, is really all about like how much of this style of action you can handle. Is 4 episodes of this good, or is it too much? And I ended the arc, you know, in animatics, just kind of feeling like, you know, yeah, like 2-3 episodes would have been really, really good, but it kind of a little overstays its welcome, even though overall it is executed well. That's my thoughts on like some of the arcs in the later seasons of the Clone Wars, like the Mon Cal arc being like, I think 3 episodes. It should have only been like 1. The Meeber Gascon arc, you know, that's 4 episodes, I think. It probably should have been like 2. Stuff like that. Even the Onderon arc, for example, that probably would have been amazing if they just cut out like 1 episode and just like focused it a little bit more and opened it up to covering other stuff. Because, you know, you think about like how the Clone Wars would be if it was completely optimized. We'd probably have our 8-episode Ventress arc with Quinlan Vos. We'd have our Son of Dathomir and all that important stuff that we really care about in here. But as it is, we have to accept that what they've gone for here is this one clone arc, the Ahsoka Walkabout arc, and then the Siege of Mandalore arc. That's their decision. Again, it will be interesting to see when we get towards the end of the season, like just how the fandom is, how the higher ups kind of viewed like how this went as a success for Disney Plus, because I assume this is driving people towards subscribing because there's so much hype behind the Clone Wars. And I suspect if they do enough marketing for like Ahsoka's return in like a month's time and then the finale again, they'll probably get even more people signed up, because it's Disney Plus is going to be active in a lot more countries come like mid-March. So about a month from now, Disney Plus is going to be available pretty much everywhere. So that should be a much bigger improvement, and we'll see how that exactly works. I suspect it will, and then the question is like, do they commit to potentially doing like a second like Lost Mission style thing, a second like version of season 6 of the Clone Wars where they just do the last few arcs? They're not necessarily in order, they're just these sort of fill-in arcs, and it has stuff like Son of Dathomir, the Ventress arc, and so on. That'd probably be the best thing for me anyway. I suppose I spent most of this video talking more about the season overall than the episode. Like, the episode itself is like I said, fine. Like I discussed the Bad Batch themselves, but like the mission here on this planet is obviously one of these sort of campaign arcs. It's a battle for a planet. It's going back and forth. Mace Windu and Anakin are the kind of Jedi generals in command here. Nice combination of two characters there, and they're worried about like, why is it such a struggle here? Like, why are the droids able to counter us so effectively? And Rex basically gets across the idea that our attacks usually work once, but then if we try and do them again, they're immediately countered, but very, very specifically. And then the same thing happens every time we try and evolve our plan. So he's suspecting that they know the sort of algorithm effectively for how they change their battle plans, and that is why the droids are sort of kind of a step ahead of them, or a step further ahead than they expect them to be. And so Rex immediately at the start is suspecting that like, oh, Echo might still be alive, because of course the whole idea of why Echo's called Echo is that he always sort of relayed the rules, or in more recent like appearances of the character, he always sort of relayed the plan to himself. And the idea here is that Rex and Echo came up with a lot of the plans together, so Echo would just randomly sort of like say to himself what the plan was. And so if Echo's alive, he probably was saying something related to the plan, and they're using him to sort of get these battle plans out, and he's being kept hostage somewhere, and they're mind probing him or whatever to have these plans in place. And that seems to be the way the end of this episode suggests. Again, I'm not trying to spoil the remaining episodes if you haven't seen them yet. So the tease at the end is that they link into this other planet, Skeko Minor, and they just hear this basically signal being sent back that it's Echo's number being echoed over and over again. So Echo is sort of linked into the droid like network in a way, so something's gone wrong here. But Rex was right. Echo is alive. He survived the Citadel. And the other unique thing about the episode is that Trench is the droid commander. So we see the return of Trench, who was obviously thought dead in like previous episodes, and we've seen we already saw his return. He was the commander at the start of the Fives arc. We saw that he had survived the whole cat and mouse incident from the very start of the series, and the kind of ram, I suppose, that Anakin did. He survived that. He came back, so this is his appearance once again. So that explains why we're dealing with a more sort of tactics-focused arc here. In that Trench was always the more tactical of the kind of droid commanders that we've had so far. So that's a nice reference to have, even if we're not like Ahsoka focused or anything like that. That we're at least bringing a lot of the other characters back in to make it feel somewhat important overall. So the plan here is that like we're going on a bit of a kind of suicide mission here, of just like we're going behind enemy lines. We'll bring the clone Suicide Squad in, basically. That is the Bad Batch, and we're just introduced to them. A little bit of tension between them and the regular clones. which is, it's fine. I suppose it makes sense to a certain degree that they're sort of engineered to have a little bit more freedom. They feel a lot of the other clones are more kind of rigid by the books. But for the most part, there's not too much tension between the two of them. It's a little bit of maybe of a forced dynamic to have them be sort of at odds with each other. Even then, it mainly is like Crosshairs, who's the main one, just because he has a little bit of an attitude, because he's sort of very stoic and sort of quiet to himself and just kind of blunt in what he says. The rest of them are fairly okay. Wrecker's maybe a little bit aggressive, but at least Hunter seems like he has a good head on his shoulders and is a good leader of the rest of them, and so on. Beyond that, it's just a lot of cool action, seeing like how impressive, of course, the Bad Batch arc, but also that Rex's crew ends up impressing the Bad Batch because, it's the 501st. They're pretty much one of the best clone squads. So of course, the best of the regulars would impress the Bad Batch, and that's pretty cool. Cody gets injured at the start, which is why sort of the focus switches to Rex as like the commanding officer, and they respect Cody already, but they don't know if they should respect Rex. But they, of course, they learn to see that he is one of the best. So that's the first episode. Like, the only real criticism I'd have is just that we've started off with the first episode and it's not the most notable episode. Like, this is not going to be an episode that I think people are discussing a lot about, just because, like, Echo is cool and like it's great to see the return of a clone character and then putting importance on the different clones, but like, this is not going to be the same as if, like, say the first episode was an Ahsoka episode. If it was that first episode of Ahsoka on her own outside of the Jedi Temple, that would have people talking because it's a new dynamic we've never seen Ahsoka. That's that blank period in Ahsoka's life we don't know about, which is why everyone's so hyped for this season. That would have been an amazing way to jump in. And I think you could have made it work because timeline-wise, like, does it really matter where this arc takes place apart from setting it before Siege of Mandalore? And then does it matter if you place the Ahsoka walkabout arc like where it is placed, like that sort of thing? But anyway, it's still a very good episode overall. I don't think it quite jumps into the sort of like elite tier of Clone Wars episodes, but it's like just, I think, kind of below that a little bit. I think where a lot of the clone-centric arcs tend to reside, just like really good but not quite the best of the best in the Clone Wars. So there's my review for the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.